Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. It's Nathaniel from Chessit, and today we are going to be analyzing a daily game I've played recently and showcasing the difference between a 1000 rated player and a 1700 rated player, which is myself. Now, getting into it, I was playing as white, and this is actually for chess.com's annual daily chess championship. So it's the first round, and I'm playing against a 1000 rated player. And my main opening is the Vienna game, so that's exactly what I went ahead and played. That's 1 e4. Black in this case decided to respond with e6. I continue on with the theory, playing knight c3, preparing to play f4. Since black played e6 in the start, he really doesn't have much control over the center, so the Vienna game is very strong in this position. I could also aim to put my bishop on c4, push this d pawn, get my bishop on c1 out. So it's looking nice already, but my opponent immediately breaks theory. Now, this might be the largest difference between high rated players and people below 1200 rating, which is memorizing theory. And memorizing theory is very important for the opening game because, as you see, my opponent has already exited theory, and now my position has definitely improved. Also, I'm not exactly sure what his plan was for this move, but generally what you want to do is move out your knights, control the center at the start of the game, and this simply does not do that. In fact, he's trapping his knight on b8. Maybe he's preparing to push his pawn to d5 and attack my center with more strength on the d5 square, but ultimately I don't think I would ever be taking on that square anyways. I would let him take and double up his pawns, or at least create an isolated island of pawns. So overall, I had no prep starting from this moment just because my opponent exited theory on move 2, and from here I decided to seize the center with d4, which is the best move. Now, this is a typical idea, but since my opponent once again has been playing passively in the first couple of moves, I'm able to take the center. He doesn't have much control over the center, has no way to attack this pawn, so that's why I played it. Next, my opponent follows with b5. Now, this is an immediate mistake, as one, this is weakening his c6 pawn. It's going to make it a lot harder to push in the future, and therefore his knight's stuck on b8. Additionally, it's never a good idea to create this formation on either side of the board with your pawns. Like, creating this formation really weakens the center and is only useful when you're trying to attack the king side, but since this is just the third move of the game, there's not really much point. This also doesn't work to develop his position at all, so I'm clearly better in this position. I go ahead with knight f3, which is not the best move. I should have continued to seal up his position by playing e5, but I went ahead with knight f3. He decides to push on b4, but I looked at this. I'm completely fine after I play knight a4, continuing to develop my knight, and now what I've done is coaxed him into pushing a pawn, his b4 pawn, into my territory, and it's going to be an easy target for me later on, as well as I can eventually get a really strong knight to c5. I can push this b3 pawn to stop this pawn from advancing more further on. So just continuing on, he plays queen a5, attacking my knight. I play b3, defending it. Pretty standard. What's interesting is I could have played c4, which also defends the knight, and after, for example, if you were to go en passant, I can just take with the knight and have a very strong center. Or if he didn't, I have 3 pawns controlling the center, and this is unusual. It's very dominant. Your opponent usually won't let you do this, so I should have played that, but this is fine. Playing b3. He decides to play bishop a6. Now, I guess this could have been his idea by pushing this b pawn so far down, but also I would argue that this bishop is very bad, as it doesn't actually threaten anything. My bishop on f3 is very much protected, and it won't ever prevent me from castling because I'm able to place my bishop on d3 or simply capture his bishop. On the next move, I play bishop b3 with the aim of castling safely. And remind you, this is a daily game, so we each get a day per move. I think I played this opening fairly quickly, though. But it starts to go downhill for black even further after he plays knight f6. Now, normally development is good, but knight f6 creates yet another target. I should have played in this position e5, simply kicking the knight, but I didn't want any knight d5 shenanigans, so I decided to play it safe, and I went queen e2. The idea is I'm threatening to capture this bishop later on. I've really made this bishop useless. Like, the only possibility he has now is to trade, which is what he should do because technically my bishop's stronger. And I also wanted to add further protection to this e4 square rather than pushing it, because I also saw that if I pushed the e4 pawn, then this d4 pawn had the potential to be stuck, right? Because he has this controlling pawn on b4. But all simple stuff. He goes on, he plays d5, finally pushing that pawn. Here, I decide to trade off bishops because I see a nice future tactic. In this position, I was struggling to find a way to advance, but I noticed that after I trade, no matter what he takes back with the knight or the queen, he doesn't actually gain any attack on me. Or if he takes with the queen, I would have just quit trading my queens. Like, for example, queen takes, I'd probably take with the queen. And I saw that I could actually get my knight to this e5 square, which I thought would be critical to this game. I thought it was a really nice way to infiltrate, considering he has a weak pawn on c6, which will be undefended after his knight comes to capture either my bishop or my queen on a6 going on. I decided to take. Now, a better move would have been to simply push this pawn, but once again, I wasn't really thinking about that, and I thought that I could be creating a weakness on d4 by doing so. And I saw that I wanted my knight to occupy the square, so I think it's perfectly reasonable to take on a6 instead, as I thought he traded with the knight, and from here, I played knight e5. Now, I saw this a few moves back, and the idea is that if he decides to get greedy and go for this free pawn, which is actually what happens in the game, I'm able to capture on c6, and now his queen is stuck. I'm attacking his queen, and no matter where he moves, it's either going to be removing a defender of this a6 knight, or he's going to be hanging his queen. So, for example, after knight takes, which is what happens in the game, I can play knight takes c6, and no matter where he moves his queen, let's say he moves like b5, he gets captured by my queen. Here, he gets captured by my knight, and anywhere else, obviously, hangs this knight. So my opponent goes ahead, plays queen c7. That's his best move, but it does leave this knight on a6 hanging. I capture it gladly. And from here, it's fairly simple. At around the 1700 range, you can really win any game in a fairly neutral position as long as you're up material. And giving me a knight against a 1000 rated player, it's simply game over. So I did a really good job of liquidating the position, especially given the fact that you have 1 day per move. You can come up with some pretty interesting tactics. So after my opponent plays knight c3, I just trade, really just trying to trade down, because I realized that in this position, black actually doesn't have too many weaknesses. But I do see that after trading, I could go after this pawn potentially. Anyways, I play queen b5, hoping to get some discovery check shenanigans with my knight later on, right? As you can see, if I move my knight, it's a discover check. He plays a6, attacking my queen. I play queen a4, keeping this pin. He goes ahead and plays bishop d6. Now, the idea is he's probably setting up some sort of attack. Really nothing much you can do, but this does let me deliver a check with my knight, which I do by playing knight e5 check. Or sorry, deliver a check by moving my knight, revealing an attack on the king. And I wanted to get my knight to this e5 square just to dominate the position and the middle of the board a bit more, as well as he's not able to capture immediately and win a pawn just because of this check, and if he were to block it, I would win a piece. So he has to move his king. He goes to king e7, and from here, I really wanted to liquidate more, so I actually went bishop f4, encouraging him to take my knight on e5. He goes f6, and here I force a trade by delivering knight c6 check, right? He's going to have to move his king, and then I just take his bishop, so it all went according to plan. We traded, and then I retreat my knight because I saw that it could become a target on c6, and I just wanted to retreat it to the d3 square for it to become a lot more active later on in the game, and then I could also move my queen as it's not tied up. So he goes a5, I move my knight to d3 as my plan was. He goes e5, and from here, I castle kingside because I saw that he has no real attacks. I'm not hanging anything, and I just want to get my king out of any potential danger. He goes rook h d8, I play rook e1, all pretty standard. He goes rook e8. I play rook e3, trying to set up a battering ram, just like slowly improving my position with every move. Once again, I said for this guy, there's not much he can do at this point. He goes queen b6. This allows a check, queen d7 check. And from here, he is forced to move his king because if he blocks, for example, I can play queen takes d5 check, and I will be winning this rook on a8. So he's forced to move his king. He goes to g7 or g8, sorry. And from here, I play rook g3, threatening mate. He defends by pushing his pawn, and I play queen takes d5, just capturing the pawn, delivering check. Overall, great move. He defends, and from here I decide to trade since I'm up. I continue liquidating, just trading as many pieces as I can, and trying to set my rooks up on this battering ram, right? The idea with rook e3 is that if he takes, I can just take his rook, and I'm simply winning. And also, I'm threatening this pawn on e4, which actually cannot be defended, as I'm able, after he brings his rook to e8, which is what happens in the game, I'm able to play knight c5, attacking both pieces. Now, here he played rook e5, attacking my knight, but I decided to capture with the rook to force more trading. If he decides to take my knight, I can capture on e8 with check. So he takes my rook, which is fine, and I take with my rook. And from here, he plays rook d1. And it could get a bit dangerous here, as I don't want him to infiltrate my position. So I close it off by playing knight d3. And from here, he goes h5. Really not much he can do, so he's just pushing. I go rook c4, king g7, rook takes c3, just picking up a free pawn. He goes g5. I push, trying to get my king out and win this game. He goes king g6. I play king f2. He goes rook d6. I play c5, attacking this pawn on a5, as well as potentially attacking this pawn on g5 later on if I'm able to bring my pawns and kings out, and knight. He goes a6, and I do something funny here. I play rook c6, forcing a trade of rooks, right? If he ignores this, I just capture his rook. So he's forced to take my rook, and that leaves open this knight e5 fork. This was just a funny way of trading off the rooks, right? There's nothing he could have done to avoid it. So I forcibly trade off rooks, and in this position, he resigns. Now, the main difference I noticed throughout this entire game is this 1000 rated player never had concrete plans or attacks. Earlier in the game, when he took the free pawn or the poison pawn on e4, he failed to see any pawns I could take one, and just the significance of my knight on e5, which is why I say always think about what your opponent's last move does for them. So he failed to do that, and I was able to capitalize on that piece. And obviously, when a 1700 rated player is 3 points of material up against a 1000 rated player, the game ends pretty smoothly. So that's my video today. Sorry I haven't posted in a while. School has taken a lot of effort recently, but I enjoy making these videos, so hopefully on occasion I'll be able to film one or two. I'll be doing a recap video of my best daily game, and submitting that as well to the dailychess.com video analysis competition. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.